Welcome to the It's Been Said podcast. I'm your host, Executive Director Lisa Ramey. Today's episode is a special edition of the It's Been Said podcast. Dr. Dana Schon, Associate Executive Director of Professional Learning, will discuss her perspective on leadership life fit. She'll offer her insights on this topic periodically over the coming months. Let's hear from Dana.
Hello, this is Dana Schon, SAI's Associate Executive Director in charge of professional learning. This Leadership Life Fit is about just saying no. Sometimes when we feel overwhelmed, it's that we're really overcommitted. We realize too late that we've given away way too many yeses. How can we save ourselves, in a sense, from this overextending? It starts by growing the leadership skill of saying no. Yes, no is a leadership skill. Let's get into what keeps us from using it more often and how we can get better at it. What makes saying no so tough sometimes? Well, no is a stronger response than yes. And what I mean by this is that no is a negative event. And according to the research of Roy Baumeister and others, negative events evoke a much stronger emotional response than a positive event. Our brains are wired to move that negative experience immediately into our long-term memories. I mean, think about how often we lose sight of the 78 positive things that happened in a day and ruminate on that one negative thing. It's our physiology. That's how our brains are wired. So, in the moment, even though every fiber of my being is screaming, don't say yes, I do it anyway. I say yes rather than having to feel someone's disappointment if I were to say no. I save their feelings, but I end up paying the price down the road when I find my schedule too full, my time limited, and my energy waning and draining. So, avoiding this emotional pain is one reason we say yes when we really want to say no. Another reason we say yes instead of saying no is that we worry about our reputations. So, for example, I might see myself as a nice person. And the story that I believe or that I have going in my head about what nice people do and how they show up and how they behave is that they say yes. So, my identity as a nice person interferes with my ability to say no. It's like I can't say no unless I have a really good reason because I want these people to think, oh, I'm a nice person. So I believe nice people say yes. And I don't really have what I think of as a good reason to say no. So I'll just say yes. And I may also want people to see me as a yes leader. I think we've all heard the advice to start with yes. So people approach you with a request or a consideration, and the advice has been, well, start with yes, and so you don't want the reputation of someone who is perceived as saying no to any ideas. Oh, well, Dana, she's never open to new ideas because, maybe I said no one or two times. But the reality is our leadership is a lot more nuanced than that. It requires an awareness of our context and the insight to understand when starting with yes makes sense and when a straight up no is the appropriate response. I think sometimes we cast things as that either or option. It's either yes or no, and it's more than that. It's more than that. And so worrying about our reputations can impede us, can stand in the way of our saying no. Other beliefs we have about what it means to say no also keeps us from doing so. Sometimes we think that being generous, so here we have a story about being generous means saying yes. So I'm back to that identity piece, right? I'm a generous person, and generous people give of their time, they say yes, they don't say no. We believe that a good leader serves and is self-sacrificing. So if I'm a good leader, I can't possibly say no. So these are just a few examples of why saying no can be so challenging. So now that we have a better understanding of why we say yes when we really want to say no, what is it we can do so that we're more comfortable with saying no? Well, let's start with some reflective questions, and then we'll think about how you can reframe, and then what might be some go-to responses when you get caught in a request. Sometimes it's as simple as giving yourself a minute to respond, a minute to think through some things. So when you're approached with a request, and this is always more difficult in person than it is when it's an email or a text message, there's some automatic space that happens, some depersonalization that exists when I am standing behind my technology. And so, regardless of whether it's a face-to-face experience or your technology, email, text, give yourself that minute to consider. And here are the questions I would invite you to think about. Does this request align with my purpose and or my values and or my goals? Is it important to me and would I give it priority? And then do I have the physical energy to honor this request? So, what else is going on for me at this moment in time? And as I think about the time commitment involved in saying yes to this request, will I have the physical energy to honor it throughout the duration of the yes? Do I have the cognitive energy? What other projects are demanding my attention, my mental energy? So, do I have the mental energy to see this yes all the way through? And do I have the emotional energy? So, what else is impacting how I feel about this particular project in light of the other demands on my time? Do I have the emotional energy to sustain the yes in this situation? So again, trying to anticipate, will this me saying yes to this, will I be navigating some conflict? Will I be navigating some high emotion in some moments? And do I have the emotional energy to support that? And then do I have the spiritual energy? So again, thinking about the different types of energy, and do I have the energy as I think about it through those different lenses to see a potential yes all the way through? If the answer to any of these questions is no, it might be a strong indication that a no response would be best. Because remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Another way to think about or help support you in using no when it's appropriate is reframing our perspective about what it means to say no. What if instead of thinking that by saying yes, you're being generous, you consider that saying no is the real act of generosity? By saying no to something that isn't that full bodied yes, you give yourself the opportunity to say yes to something that does align more tightly to your purpose, your values, your goals, that excites you, that fuels your energy. Like so many things, it's about trade-offs. Saying yes to this might mean I need to say no to something else. And I think sometimes we get caught up in saying yes to this and saying yes to this and saying yes to this. And you know what the trade-off is in that? It's our well-being. It's our ability to keep giving and being in service of the people that we get to lead. Because what then I'm saying no to by saying yes to everything is my own energy levels, my own health, my own vitality. And again, saying yes to your own health and well-being is not selfish. It's actually somewhat selfless because by fueling your own energy and your own health, vitality, well-being, you are stronger in service of the people that you get to lead and love. So, another consideration in terms of reframing that I'd invite you to think about would be the identity beliefs that you have about what it means to be a nice leader or a nice person or a good leader. So, for example, you might reframe rather than good leaders say yes, Maybe good leaders are judicious in how they spend their time and their energy. They're judicious in and selective about what they say yes and no to. Good leaders focus on strategies and initiatives with the highest leverage, which means they say no to things that don't advance the work that they're doing, that don't fuel their energy. Good leaders know that saying no means creating opportunities to say yes to what matters most. And nice people say no sometimes. Remember, people get to own their own feelings. You do not own someone else's feelings. They're entitled to their feelings and they get to own them. And you get to have your own. That's it. Yes, we do have emotional impact on others, and we control what we can control, which is our own energy and intention. And so, with that in mind, let's talk about some different ways that we might say no. No matter how you approach it, your first step is being aware of your own energy. So, an energy of guilt, an energy of worry about what someone thinks about me is not the best way to enter into that no response. Instead, it's a belief that this no response is best for me in this moment, and I have a calm energy around it. And that is the place from which I want to deliver that no. You might tie it to your identity. James Clear in his book Atomic Habits talks about adopting language to the effect that I'm the kind of person who. So I'm the kind of person who doesn't drink soda. Or I'm the kind of person or the kind of leader who gets into classrooms. I'm the kind of leader who stays focused on our priorities, knowing that there are a lot of things that could work well for us in education. And right now, this year, my focus is on X. I'm the kind of person who values my health and vitality. And then your responses when you get questions or when you get requests or offers, it might be, I don't drink pop. Or, oh gosh, thanks for that. I don't schedule over the top of classroom visits. Or I don't miss workouts. And I want to really emphasize the power of the word don't versus can't. Don't is very empowering. I don't do that. That's who I am as a person. Whereas can't is powerless. Like, who says you can't? And it opens it opens the door for some argument and defensiveness. I can't drink pop, or oh, I can't schedule over the top of classroom visits, or I can't miss workouts. Well, why can't you? And you're not going to spend energy defending the can't. So when you say, I don't schedule over the top of classroom visits, period, the end. So don't and can't is an important language statement that I would invite you to consider. Other things to think about is saying, thank you so much. I'm already committed to another project and I don't want to spread my energy too thin. Or I don't, that's a great idea. I don't have the personal resources to say yes now, but maybe down the road. And by the way, do not hint at down the road if your gut is saying, heck no, not ever, never. So kicking the can down the road just sets you up to expend more energy on the decision yet again at that point down the road. Again, if yeah, it's all about the timing, then absolutely that's the appropriate response. Another way, oh gosh, thanks so much for thinking of me. I'm not available, but blank whoever would be a good choice. Or, oh, I'm not able to give you that. However, you might go here to get that. And so offering an alternative can be a nice way to say no. I appreciate you thinking of me. I'm honored. I'm fully scheduled at the moment, so I am not accepting new opportunities or I am not saying yes right now. So again, keep it short and simple. When we get nervous or uncomfortable, we tend to verbally vomit, trying to defend our choice or make the other person understand so they still like us. Turning that negative no experience into a positive. Let it go. Let it go. You don't own their feelings, remember? And though you may feel the stress of saying that no in the moment, you may feel that discomfort, that ick in your gut, picture your future self free from an obligation that did not resonate with you. That's it for this edition of Leadership Life Fit. Thanks for joining me, and remember, just say no.